As the OFSTED debate continues in all its fiery vagueness, there's a failure to recognise that OFSTED in its present form is fairly useless, but that inspections are an important part of the regulation of a school system, of a national school system. Now, I've called repeatedly for the abolition of OFSTED. That's the abolition of OFSTED in its present form and its present motivation. Its present motivation seems to be to add to the ideas that there is some sort of league table of schools. And that's not a good thing, because that league table, the choice is very rarely available to parents. Either they've got to move house, or they are told that they cannot send their children to such and such a school because they fall out of the catchment area. Or they opt for private education, which is now under threat. So this idea of the league tables is nonsense unless you're sitting there looking on with envy at some other school saying they're better than we are. What's the point of that? It doesn't drive up the standards of performance in your school. No. Ofsted should be redeveloped so that Ofsted forms the part of a private school's eyes only investigation system. It inspects, it reports back to the head teachers. If necessary, it recommends the head teacher's replacement and the replacement of senior staff. But otherwise, it's there in an advisory capacity to pull up standards. So, in fact, it needs to be doing significantly more work to produce documents which have a practical application. As for this idea of league tables, it just needs to be dumped, and it needs to be smashed on the head, and it needs to be gone. Because the first option, the first duty of the government, and therefore of Ofsted, or whatever replaces it, is not to defend Ofsted, but to defend the children and the teachers in the schools. And the priority there is the children, of course. All children should be able to assume there is a good education available to them. That's why we pay taxes. That's why we have a national school system. That's why Baker and Co. set up a national curriculum all those years ago. Before that, there was only one subject which was by law demanded, and that was religious studies. Now it hardly gets a look in. And we need to ensure that the Ruth Perry story is not repeated. This bullying of senior staff, and actually the bullying that it then goes on throughout the entire school system of all staff during the run-up and follow-up of a school inspection, is detestable. It doesn't encourage better standards. It drives down standards because it drives down focus. It's a distraction from education, not a help to education. School inspections should be there to support, not to abolish. And if we've got to a point where the school is so bad, then maybe school inspection should be offering advice about changing the senior staff, but certainly no more than that. And Amanda Spielman's, she was the former head of Ofsted, Amanda Spielman's defence of her team's investigation is simply nonsense. First of all, that boat has sailed, and secondly, the defensive nonsense, the risible defence over somebody's dead body is absurd. And she says, or people defending her have said, oh, we need to be supporting children rather than being nice to adults. No, what we need to do is to make sure that our schools survive and that our schools get better and that our schools put children first, then teachers, then bureaucracy, in that order. And we've got it absolutely back to front. And summing up a school with a one-word statement or a one-word slogan is nonsensical. We need to be engaged with education rather than censorious of education.